Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you for joining. Today is February 7th, 2021. It's going to be Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. Just going to be going over a few tickers that I have in mind for this week. I'm going to start out with Boeing being one of the top tickers I'm watching. As you guys could tell here on the weekly, had a nice run up here. Had some pretty good news that came out. Let's see what the news were. It was Boeing's premier focus on this value. Let me see what the news. I think it was the Air Release resumes MAX deliveries, which says third Canadian carrier to reintroduce the MAX 737. I think it had a couple of news that came out, but anyways, so there was a nice gap up here. There was a nice push, and now it seems like it's consolidating into this like downward channel, which we can also call a bull flag. So I'm just gonna kind of break down what I see here. It's kind of been bouncing off this level pretty nicely. And essentially what we're looking for is for the break of the flag, and I'm trying to get into a pretty early entry. So I'm looking at this level here, which was once resistance, right? And now it's becoming a new support. So I'm actually looking for a small gap up into Monday, and then a sell-off into this 207 area. So I'm kind of looking to take a position to go long around 207 with a stop loss here of about 206 if we want to go as a whole number. And obviously I'm hitting these targets at 212.18, at 217.07, and then ultimately the 223.14. However, since this is actually going to be a continuation pattern, and it breaks, this downward channel to the top side. So I'm kind of looking for it to do something like this, for it to gap up here, bounce here, and then ultimately break here, or reject and come back down to this zone. And ultimately I would like an entry around this area, the 200 area. If not, I'm kind of looking for a secondary or third entry, which is closer to the bottom of the channel, which would be around this area here. Ultimately, that's what my plan is going to be if BA fails, to hold or to hold the levels and to break through the bull flag that I see. So that's going to be for Boeing. If we look at the 30 minutes, this is kind of what we're looking for. A gap up, a sell-off into this demand zone, and hopefully it continues to the top, breaks a flag into new highs. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for Boeing. Now I'm going to be looking at Caterpillar. Cat, as we could tell here, is on a nice, real nice uptrend, right? Pretty bullish. Now it's kind of consolidating, starting to consolidate. So it's either going to go into a weekly range between these two levels. So obviously I'm setting my alerts here to make sure that I catch the whole complete move. So ultimately I'm looking for a break of this consolidation, right, and into new highs. So let's go to the 4-hour, and this is kind of what I'm looking at here. So if we kind of play out what happened here in the past few days, So had a nice run up, then it kind of consolidated into this area, right? And then once it broke out of here, it made a big move, right? Then it came back and it actually fell into this zone again, if you guys want to kind of see what it fell into, right? So ultimately what I'm looking at is a nice bounce off the zone, right? Then again, it kind of created like this little demand area here, kind of bounced into it and flew up again. So now we're gonna kind of see if it holds this level, the 189 to 190 level. If it doesn't, I'm looking for an entry here with the stop loss of 184.50, I would say. And ultimately, if that doesn't hold, we're looking to re-enter this zone that it created down here. And obviously, if it does enter the zone, I'm looking for a kind of a bounce of this trend line and into the break of the ascending triangle that is forming. If you guys want to see it, it's kind of forming an ascending. An ascending triangle, and then hopefully it breaks into new highs. So this is kind of what we're looking at. Kind of do this. Obviously with the keeping an eye, a close eye up here where the seller stepped up. So that's what I'm looking at for CAT. Then we're gonna move into Facebook. Facebook is again in a look at the weekly. If we look, it's kind of like on this nice had a nice run up, and I could almost argue that we could call this a bull flag. Obviously it's been, you know, bouncing off this downward channel, and hopefully it continues to bounce up. One thing I'm looking at here is how much volume it's coming in on the green candles, right? This red candle actually showed a lot of volume, and I'm looking at the a volume coming in on the green candles. See how it's compared to the red candles, right? So obviously the green candles have shown that there's more volume, even though there's more buyers that are interested. So I'm looking for an entry here on the 4 hour of I got two different entries mapped out. One would be here of this 264 level, right? And then we see a resistance here. And actually, if you guys want to consider this a small small zone, see if kind of look to the left and actually confirm that it's some type of a zone. So I'm either looking for a break of 269 or a dip entry into this mini zone 264 area. If this fails, I'm looking for an entry here with the stop loss right under I would say 250 would be my stop loss here. Yeah, 252. Should we go 252 is fine for me. We'll use that as a stop loss. So that's my game plan for Facebook. Then I want to move on to MU. MU is actually forming a nice bullish pennant. If you look at the weekly, you kind of see it a little more how it's kind of respected this this two trend lines. So what I could kind of see here is that the buyers and sellers are starting to build some tension in between, and obviously when it breaks out of this pennant, it's either going to break to the top or break towards the downside. Or it's probably going to consolidate into this weekly levels. If that's the case, then I'm obviously looking for an entry around this area, the green zone that I marked, and for kind of like a long swing and hope and a break of the highs with a profit target of 87.31. If we look at the 4-hour, kind of what I just drew here, so it's been kind of bouncing between this levels, and now it's getting to the point where it's getting pretty tight. There's obviously what's happening here, sellers are pushing the price down. And buyers clearly are pushing the price up. So that's where the tension's building, and it's going to break to either side. I'm looking for an entry of 77, or between 77 and 78. If that fails, I'm looking for another entry here of 75 with a tight stop loss, and ultimately, if this fails, it's going to fall into this zone that it was resistance at one point, right? And then it came and tested support. So this is a pretty strong zone that I'm looking for an entry here if it happens. If not, obviously I got different levels that I'm looking. I'm also gonna look for maybe for a day trade for a break of the high, and obviously I got my profit targets set up. So that's it for MU. Then we're gonna move to NVIDIA, which is actually in a pretty good weekly zone. So same thing that I mentioned here. It's kind of like in this bullish pennant. Definitely a lot of potential in this play. If it keeps bouncing between these two areas, once it breaks, it's gonna have a pretty big move into new highs or break back down into a one of these levels maybe here, but I don't see any structure back here on the left, so there's a possibility that it could break down into this. So for my entries, I am looking for an entry here. It's kind of been bouncing between these two zones, right? And obviously on Friday it kind of sold off, or Thursday sold off into this this green level, which kind of showed me that buyers were interested around this area, and look how much it stepped up. So fell in here, buyers were able to bring it up, but obviously there was no value seen here, so it kind of sold off again. So there's definitely a fight between buyers and sellers in this area. Every time it gets here, rejected. So there's a possibility that it comes up here again and it gets rejected. Another thing I want to know is that it's kind of forming a triple top, 1, 2, 3, and a triple bottom. I actually it's kind of hit the bottom area once, twice, three. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is actually a good area of support. And then it actually broke it a few times, the resistance, right? Because it was resisted here once, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That actually broke above the level, but buyers weren't able to take over this area. Again, it broke again. Sellers took over, brought it back down. Again, here it was brought down here, so it looks like buyers stepped in this area. So this is what I'm using for my entry, and obviously I'm using probably 530 as a stop loss. I'll use this line here. That's my stop loss. Color it red. Alright, so that's going to be my stop loss. Let me change this back to what I'm used to. If it falls under this level, I'm actually going to look for another entry here. I'm going to try to get it as close to 502.19, right? Which is, this would be a weekly resistance level. So that's what I'm looking at for NVIDIA. Roku. I don't like trading Roku, but this has a nice setup as well. Back to the weekly, is actually in a really good uptrend. Right, I think it had a lot of good news, and it's been pushing pretty high, and it's got into this resistance level, which is a 442.79 area. Seems like every time it reached even the 448 area, sellers stepped up and kind of pushed it down a little bit. If we look at the 4 hour, this is a weekly level that has been kind of bouncing around. So I'm kind of looking for an entry here, which is where buyers stepped up, right? So this was once a green candle. It was pushed up here, and then sellers pushed it all the way down into this area. Then this is where buyers stepped up and brought it back up to this level, and then it became new support, and into new push into almost the new highs. But again, this is my secondary entry. This is my primary entry here. Kind of where buyers have been stepping in. If it fails this two sections, I'm looking for an entry back down here, where this, we could argue that this is a demand zone. So every time it came in here, pushed up, sold off, there was a pretty big move. Again, sellers stepped up and kind of hung around in this area. Again, it pushed out of the zone, became new support, and into new highs. So I could argue that this is a pretty strong support level. And obviously we have the weekly level that's going to support the where the buyers, the area of value where buyers stepped up and have kept it up. So that's what I'm looking at for Roku. And last one, Spotify, which is, I did a video on this last week or 2 weeks ago and kind of broke it down a little bit. I actually missed my entry on Friday, which would have been down here somewhere where buyers stepped up. If we gap up over the weekend and we open up here, I'm actually going to look for an entry into this zone. The reason why I'm interested in Spot is because even though it had pretty kind of confusing earning report, and sellers stood up and took over this whole level, and it reached actually down here, it told me that buyers kind of stepped up and they kind of like it at this level, right? So it tells me that institutions are showing interest at this level. Investors are seeing value of Spotify at the 310 level. So I'm actually going to try to, like I said, an entry at around the 313 area, and if I could get it down as low as 307, that would be perfect. And I would use this as my stop loss, this little the end of the wick right underneath that. That's going to be my stop loss. So that's what my watch list is for this week. Obviously, we got to take into consideration the market sentiment, right? Which is actually a pretty bullish, I think. Just kind of continue to market, this 4/ES is kind of in this rising wedge. So I'm kind of curious to see if, it falls down, breaks down, falls down, or in this level it kind of consolidates to the side like it's been doing for the past few days. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. So this is a pretty strong weekly support. So it was resistance, became resistance again, and then new resistance turned into a new support. So this is actually a pretty good level. So I'm still comfortable if it falls into this area and it kind of bounces off of that. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for this weekend, or for this week, February 8th, 2021. And I will do a secondary video to recap every single trade. Okay, you guys have a good weekend.